All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lindsay Humphreys, and I'm the Program Director for Junior Achievement of New Mexico. Today, you are joining us for our Inspiring NM Student Conference. And thank you so much to the New Mexico Society of CPAs for partnering with Junior Achievement to make this amazing conference possible. This conference was designed to provide New Mexico students with the opportunity to hear personal journeys of business professionals in various careers in finance. During the remaining 4 weeks of this conference, we will feature 2 speakers per week, a speaker on Wednesday afternoons at 1 o'clock and Thursday mornings at 10:30. During these events, you will hear speakers share details about their education, their job, and their career journey, as well as learn some very valuable skills and concepts for your own future economic success. Before we get started, a few virtual meeting etiquette reminders. This video will be recorded and posted onto our YouTube channel, so for anyone who was not able to attend today's session, feel free to send them that YouTube link when it comes available. At this time, if you could please type your first and last name into the chat box, and if you're an educator on the call, please just let us know how many students you have with you. During the speaker's presentation, please make sure all your mics are muted. And if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to write them down into the chat box, or you can unmute and ask them during the Q&A portion of the event. Today, we are so excited to welcome Georgie Ortiz, Managing Principal in New Mexico for Clifton Larson Allen. We are honored and thrilled to have her share her story with you all today. Georgie, I'm going to share my screen and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate it. So I just want to welcome and thank you for having me today. And like Lindsay said, I'm Georgie Ortiz, and it's really so nice to be here with you. And I want to thank Junior Achievement and the Society of CPA. So I'm really looking forward to this. I am going to talk about my path and how I arrived at CLA, we like to use CLA and not Clifton Larson Allen, but that's the initials for it, and how I arrived at being a managing principal in New Mexico. Let me just give you a brief summary of what CLA does. So we're a top 10 accounting firm, but we're really considered a professional services firm. So we do your regular tax assurance, we help clients with consulting, and we do wealth advisory. So we try to help people that has saved money, make that money bigger and work for them more. But I started out, Lindsay, you can go ahead and change it. Thank you. I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and so I don't want this to be a civics class, and I know that goes really long back because I'm a pretty old person, and but it really shaped who I was, so I want to make sure that I discuss it a little bit. So I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama in the 60s and 70s, and it was really a turbulent time, and a lot of historic things happened. And so there was a bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, where 2 little African-American girls were killed. And you know, the crossing of the Selma Bridge, that Edmund Pettus Bridge that's now named after James Lewis. James Lewis marched for African Americans' right to vote, and it was called Bloody Sunday because so many people were injured trying to march for their right to vote. Some good things happened, like the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination for people based on sex or color. But I think this time really shaped me. I wasn't directly affected because I grew up white and I had those rights, but it did really indirectly affect me, and I think I got to see how not to behave and what kind of person I wanted to be growing up, and I think it shaped to what kind of leader I hope I am, which so anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I also want to mention that if you grew up in Alabama, one of the good things is they have great football, and you're either a University of Alabama fan or Auburn, and I grew up Alabama, so Roll Tide, and that's always stuck with me. And so next, I finished high school in Alabama, But then I traveled. You can change it, Lindsay. Then I traveled to Europe. So much, much to the dislike of my parents, instead of going straight to college, I traveled to Europe with a couple of friends and got to see just some amazing sights and had a great time. And it really was amazing for a young kid to get to see the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum and take a cruise down the Rhine River. And so I think this really shaped me too, and really helped me build confidence in myself that I could get out there in this big wide world and take care of myself. But I was really poor because my parents were not going to support me because they wanted me to go to college. And so, but I had a great time. And when you can't eat that often, it's pretty easy to stay skinny because I was so poor. But that was a great experience too, that helped me. Lindsay, you can change it. So when I came back from Europe, I actually moved to California, and I loved California, but it's a really expensive place to live. And I worked as an accounting clerk there, and I did that for a few years. And then I thought, hey, I really want a car that has some windows and I can actually roll those windows up and down. And it has air conditioner because I really couldn't afford much there. So I decided to move to Tucson and start my education. I really thought, okay, if I'm going to be able to afford a car that can actually drive and feed myself and take care of myself, I really need to go and get my education. And so I moved to Tucson, and for a year I worked because if you didn't work and pay taxes in Arizona, then you could not, you had to pay out of state tuition, which was much more expensive than in state. And so I did that for a year, and I went to school at Pima Community College, which is much like our C&M here. I can't say enough about the community colleges. It's such a great way to go to school for almost nothing, and the instructors are amazing. A lot of them actually teach at their local universities. So that was an amazing experience for me. Then I transferred after a couple of years to Arizona, and again, simply had a great time. I was older than most of the students, and so had a little bit more experience under my belt, a little bit more confidence. And when I worked in California as an accounting clerk, I really loved it and decided to go into accounting at that time. Lindsay, you can go ahead and change it. And so I love this slide because I love accounting, but it does make people cry. It made me cry a few times because some of the classes were a little difficult, but it's really what I decided that I like to do. And I want to say something here too, a little bit about passion. Excuse me just for a minute. Is that I hear a lot that, let's always do what we're passionate about. And I really think that's great. But, I can't throw a football like Tom Brady or Jalen Hurts. And, I can't sing a lick, so I'm never going to be a great artist. And I'm not 5'11", so I'm never going to be a supermodel. But I really found something that I enjoyed. And if you want to be good at something, that's really where the passion comes in. And so if you have a hobby that you can make money at and you're passionate about, I think that's great. But if not, you can always find something that you really enjoy doing and make an excellent living out of it. And again, just wanting to be good at something, that's where the passion comes in. And so, it sounds weird that you're passionate about accounting or you're passionate about maybe being an attorney, but really that's, I believe, what finding your passion is about, because very few people are going to be in the NFL or be supermodels or, be on stage in front of millions of people, but you can still be passionate and make a great living and really enjoy it. So I just wanted to throw that in too. Lindsay, you can do the next slide. So I became a cool CPA, and Kelsey knows most CPAs are pretty nerdy, but but I am not nerdy at all, which my operations director is sitting behind me laughing because everybody actually thinks I'm nerdy. But you can also be a cool CPA. I'm probably not one of them, but you can be a cool CPA. And a CPA, you can go many different directions, just like, a doctor can be a podiatrist, a foot doctor, or a brain surgeon. It's the same in the accounting profession or public accounting to be a CPA. You can do taxes, you can do audits, you can do consulting. I mean, there's so much things you can do. I've always been an auditor and never done taxes. I still don't know how to do taxes. And so asking me about taxes is really like asking a podiatrist about brain surgery, because I have somebody, in my firm that helps me and they do my taxes. So there's many different avenues and services that you can perform as a CPA. And I became an auditor. And this picture, unfortunately, is true. People see auditors like monsters, like we're scary, intimidating, because we come in and we look at what they've done and try to assess what they've done. And maybe sometimes we have to write them up because they didn't do everything perfect. And so sometimes we intimidate people, but we're really there to help people and to help them do better. So, nobody's ever, I guarantee you, been scared of me or anything, but it is interesting and I do love it. I audit a lot of large state and local governments. And so we make sure that the citizens' money that those states receive are used correctly and used the way they should be. And so we help those government employees do that, and we come alongside them. And so that's something that I've been passionate about, and it's really been a great career for me. Lindsay, you can change it. Okay, so this is what everybody thinks my job looks like. Like, I put my feet up on the desk now, and that I actually wish my desk was that clean. It's never, ever been that clean. It usually has piles of paper on it, unfortunately, still. But about 8 years ago, I was asked to become the managing principal for CLA in the state of New Mexico. And so that was a big shift for me. I still actually work on my state and local clients, although not as much. And now I do a lot more administration. So I help us hire people. We see how many students from the university we're going to need based on our workload. And I really now am more of a people person, so to speak, because that's usually what I do. I prepare our budgets for our office. And I really make sure we have revenue or funds coming into the office and that we don't exceed our expenses, so that we have more money coming in than we have going out. And I really work with our team and our family members, because without them, I couldn't do my job whatsoever. And we're really interconnected and work together. My operations director, Brandy, who helped me today, she probably thinks that her job is really to babysit me all day. And for the most part, she's right. But I couldn't do it without just an amazing group of people that work with me. And so it's been a great path to my life that's led me here. And you don't have to have one path fit all. Like myself, I went and played a little bit and learned a lot about the world after high school. And then I went back to college But everything I've done in my life, I've tried to learn something from, and some things are very hard and difficult. You make a lot of mistakes, but that'll help you get to where you want to be. So that's been sort of my journey to where I'm at now in my life. Yeah, and I think a typical day for me, especially pre-COVID, but I still do it after COVID, is I walk around the office and I say hello to everybody, and I really want to know how they're doing, especially if it's a Monday. Did they have a good weekend? How are their spouses? How are their children? Is their dog okay? Because I'll get to know if they have dogs or cats, and, I'll learn that, one of their cats is sick, and are they going to be okay? And we really do try to make it a family, and I think that interconnectedness is really important. I also think that we try to have a very diverse workplace, and it's something that I've always been really passionate about. And I think that we have one of the most diverse offices within CLA. Like offices in New York and LA, they're much bigger and they have very diverse, but I think we're in the top 5. And so I think I learned that early on, is that you have to have people that you work with that are different, that sees things different, that works with people differently, works with clients differently. And that's not just the people of, not just the color of their skin, but if it's female and male, it's really important to have a balance there too. So I have learned that along the way, that we're all valuable and can absolutely be an asset. So I think that's been my journey, the biggest part of it. And these people, I don't really know if it's because where I grew up or when I grew up there, but these people really have been my heroes. They're probably just my heroes too, because they're amazing men. And the one quote from Martin Luther King about, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. I think that is not only inspirational, but just true in your life, because you're going to have so many times when things aren't going well, when you've screwed up, which is, we're all humans, so we do it constantly. So we just have to get back up. But it's really been a motto for my life. Both of these men have. And so that's something else I would say, is find people. They don't have to be well-known people like these two men, but people that you can look up to and help you along your journey in life. And this is something that I believe in too. You don't have a great day, you make it a great day, because you really make your life what it should be. And that's every single day and every single action that you take throughout the day. So thank you for letting me share my story. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Georgie. I'll switch over and we can do the other PowerPoint. Just give me one sec.
Great. Thanks,
Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you. So now this is the fun part. We're going to go over what your paycheck looks like, taxes they take out, and what is gross versus net income. So you can go ahead and move it, Lindsay. Thank you. So, receiving that first paycheck really is exciting. Even as old as I am, I can actually remember my first paycheck. I actually worked in a doctor's office part-time, and, I thought I was just rich, my first paycheck that I got. But then you see all the money that comes out of there from the government. And so it can be a little bit of a shock. And so some of the things that are required disbursements from your paycheck are state and federal income taxes. So it's on a sliding scale how much federal income tax or state income tax gets taken out, and it depends on how much money you make or how many dependents. I don't want to go too far into that, we'll make it pretty easy. But and you know, they take out income tax to do different things for the citizens. So they'll take it out for roads, for the traffic lights, you know, the parks that, you know, the states furnish or the counties furnish. And so that has to get paid for, and it gets paid from the citizens. And this is how we pay for it, from our federal and state income tax. And then we have something called Social Security withholdings. And that's money that is for retirement of older people. So you pay into that, and it goes for the people that are retiring today. And so they get a piece of it. And when you're that age, and I know you don't think that you'll ever be old like me, but you will, and it comes really fast. So make every, you know, day count. But that's what the Social Security withholdings are for. And then we have Medicare taxes. And, you know, unfortunately, there's some people in our society that are disabled, are elderly, and they have issues, and they need additional resources to help them get through it. And so we help with that too. And so all the citizens, you know, we sort of like a team and a family. We help other citizens that can't always help themselves and want it to be there if anything were to happen to us. And so that's a lot of the taxes that get taken out. And then sometimes there's non-required items that get taken out. So at CLA, I buy my health insurance through the firm. So I pay a piece of it, but then they also pitch in and pay a little bit for me too. Or parking. You can park in a designated parking area, or you can pay to park in the garage. So it's really up to you, but that's a cost too. And I pay in to what's called a 401k. It's like an investment program that you can put money in, so that when you retire, you have some of your own money, and that gets invested and it grows over time. And so that's another voluntary deduction. You could pay into your 401k. I do that too, every paycheck. And you can go ahead and change it, Lindsay. Thank you. And so in front of us is an earnings statement or a pay stub. So the bottom you can see is the actual check, and the top part is the earnings statement. So you can see at the very top, there's your name. Your name would be there. And then you have what's called a pay period, and it goes from June 2nd to June 16th. And those are the actual dates that you worked within that pay period. Those are the dates that you're going to get paid for. And if you go down underneath the earnings, you can see hours, 50 hours. That's the amount of hours that you worked within that pay period. And then the rate is the amount that you make per hour. And in this case, it's $9 an hour. So we would just take the 50 hours, multiply it by that $9 an hour rate, and your earnings for this period are $450. And then over on the other side of the period, the YTD, that's the year to date. So it looks like this person worked another pay period. So that's their total amount that they've earned year to date. And then on the bottom of that, you can see gross pay. That's $450. And the gross pay is literally just what you've earned. It's without any deductions yet. So just remember, gross pay is the total that you earned before deductions are taken out. And then if we go to the right of that, you can see the required deductions. So again, those are the ones we were just talking about. So you have your federal income tax, and in this case, they didn't take anything out. And then your FICA. Your FICA is your Social Security, and FICA stands for Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and that's Social Security. So this case, it's the Medicare piece of the FICA, and so they took that out. And there's a percentage of Social Security and Medicare that gets taken out, and that gets matched by the employer too. So that percentage changes throughout time. I think right now it's 7.65, if I'm not mistaken. And then the next is the state withholding. And then the bottom is the actual Social Security that we pay in to people when they're retired. And then on the bottom, the other deductions are some of the things I was talking about, like the health insurance, or the parking, or the 401k, which in this case, nothing got deducted. And so your net pay is just after all your deductions have been taken out of the gross pay. And in this case, it's $408, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, $418. So that's the difference between net pay and gross pay. Your gross pay is what you actually earned, and then your net pay is after deductions. And it is a lot of money, and the more money you make, it seems like it's more that gets taken out, obviously. But that's a difference. And Lindsay, can you go to the next page, please? Thank you. And so again, gross versus net. Gross is the 450, what you actually earn. The taxes are what gets taken out, so that's deducted to come up with your net income. So you have all that $418 to spend, but don't forget, usually expenses come out of that. So if you're living on your own, you'll have rent, you'll have utilities, you may have a car payment, car insurance, you'll have your cell phone, of course, clothes, food. And so when you're trying to figure out what you need to live on and to earn, always remember that your net income is your take-home pay, and that's where all your expenses have to come. So if you're lucky, you can just go play with that money, but most of us cannot, and we actually have to pay for our cost of living. So I think that's it. I think that was it. That was the main thing I wanted to go over. If you have any questions for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Georgie. That was super informative. We're going to move into our Q&A portion. I do just want to say, Georgie, your camera has been frozen for the last 10 minutes. So if there's any way that we could potentially maybe turn it off and turn it back on, that might be able to, the students might be able to see your face during the Q&A. And I will, I'm sorry?
Did that work?
You are off now, so could you turn it back on? We can try that. It could be the internet not letting you do the video.
Sorry.
Okay. No worries. We'll move forward. So I do want to move into the Q&A portion with, and just know anyone who's on the call, anything that we talked about is fair game for questioning, career and financial questions. So if you'd like to put those into the chat, that is your option, or if you want to unmute, that is your other option. But I will lead us in first question. And so the first question I want to ask Georgie is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Probably just to work really hard, and that I'm going to make mistakes, and that my job, especially when you're new on a job, is just to learn everything you can. Don't get scared to, ask questions, and just be a sponge and soak everything up. But I think the biggest thing is you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. You learn from those mistakes and move on. I think too many people let mistakes define them for the bad, and it really should define you for the good. Again, you should just move forward from them.
Excellent. Thank you. Question number 2, what was there ever a time that you messed up at work or failed, and how did you recover?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's more than one, but I can tell you one big one that I had. So I was a manager then, not a principal, and we do a lot of state and local government, especially I do, but CLA does quite a few, and our office does quite a few. And we do something called a single audit, and that's just where we look at federal programs, and there's a way to determine what we look at each state agency. So if I go to audit the state health department, they have so many grants that they receive from the federal government. And there's a way that has to be determined, and the Fed set that process of how they're determined. And so I messed up on that process. I followed some working papers and I messed it up. And that's actually a big thing in our field. It by far was my biggest mistake that I ever made. And so the OIG came in, they looked at it, they found the mistake, and I had to do additional training, and then I had to have some additional work papers sent to the AICPA to make sure that I was competent, which thank goodness they looked at them and everything was fine. And in the end, everything was okay, but it really shook my confidence because it was a mistake I was actually surprised that I had made. And really, it was a judgment call that I determined that I could make. And it was a disagreement that the OIG said, you don't have that judgment. So I learned a lot from that. And I got my confidence back. And I just kept moving forward. I really enjoyed doing that kind of work. And so it did get me down for a little bit, but I put my big girl pants on and kept going.
Excellent. Thank you. What do you love most about your job?
Oh, I think that's easy. The people that I work with, my family members, team members, they're really great. I mean, they're great people and they're great technicians, and I enjoy coming to work every day.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to give anybody a chance to unmute and ask a question directly to Georgie. See if anyone would like to do that now. All right. So next question, what is the easiest and hardest part of your job?
I think it's actually both sides of the same coin. I think I love the people, but it is difficult dealing with people. There's a lot of disagreements, and so that can be difficult. So I think coming to a place together where you may agree to disagree, but we can go on and do our job, I think that's probably the hardest part of it.
Thank you. A question from the chat. What does CPA stand for?
It's a certified accountant.
Excellent. What is the CPA test? And when do you take it?
It's a, Kelsey would be great at this, but it's a uniform test that accountants take if they want to become a CPA. And so you have to have 4 years of your accounting degree. A lot of people nowadays, to meet the requirement of the hours requirement after they graduate, will go on and get a master's degree. And then it's a 4-part test. And you can pass each part one at a time, or you can take all 4 parts and pass. So there's a lot of studying to that once you get out of college.
Excellent, thank you. So in your presentation, you mentioned all the places you've lived. And so is there anything that stuck out to you the most about each one of those places? What made you choose Albuquerque? What made you stay in New Mexico? Yeah,
I really love the West. So I loved growing up in the South, and I learned a lot, and I go back there and visit family, and I go back there and see Alabama football. So, but I love the West. I love the easygoingness, I think, that living on the West Coast and then going to Arizona had. And I often felt like they embraced diversity easier. Now, that's not true everywhere, but I think the biggest thing I learned is there's no utopia anywhere. And a lot of where you live is what you make of it. But I drove through Albuquerque and really fell in love with it and fell in love with Santa Fe and wanted to make it home. And so I've lived here for 25 years now, and it's definitely home.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We did have Kelsey responded into the chat for the students on the call that there's a 150-hour college credit requirement and a 4-part exam plus experience requirement. And she says it's all worth it.
It is. That I agree with.
And so question from the chat, Edith would like to know, why are people poor in your opinion?
I think that's a complicated question, but I think some people aren't lucky into the families that they're born into. You know, you can't choose the family you're born into, and so you may have come from a family that unfortunately did not have the means to be educated, and too often then that's their children's plight. And I think it's very hard to move up from that and do something different. And you know, and I think there's also a societal piece too. Obviously, if you're born into an extremely wealthy family, it's much easier for you to go to college and have the means. And so the people that are rich, I think it's easier for them, in my opinion, to stay on that course. And it's harder for people that were not that lucky to rise above it. And so that's why I recommend things like CNN, where you can go to school and it's really inexpensive and you can still work and there's people to help you. And that's actually why I recommend a career like accounting, because it has a lot of flexibility within it. And I think of all the careers, it's one that doesn't cost much. You don't have to go on and get your law degree or go to school and be a doctor, which is a lot of money. So for many reasons, but that's my opinion. I think there's many societal reasons why people are poor, but for me, I think that's the biggest one.
Thank you. If there's anybody, we'll just give another option to unmute and ask questions. There's no more questions currently in the chat, so we'll give everybody a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds. And then I will close us out with a question, Georgie. So you did touch on your day-to-day a little bit more, but for the students that might be interested in accounting or anything like that, what would the day-to-day of maybe entry level and to the position you're at now look like?
Sure. When I first started out, again, sometimes you can start out in tax, or you can start out in audit, or we have something called biz ops, which is we do bookkeeping for businesses. So you can start out in different, but I started out in audit. So I basically would go out with a team of people and do an audit. So we look at cash. Did they reconcile their cash? Did their accounts payable, how much money do they owe at the end of the year? And when you're first starting out, you would reconcile cash quite a bit, and you would audit accounts payable. And so you really work with a team, and there's a lot of software you need to learn, and you learn how to put together financial statements for the entities that you audit. You help the organizations that you audit put the financial statements together. So it's actually a pretty exciting, I always found it exciting. It's like putting together a puzzle many times, and you learn quite a bit. You learn you learn about business, but you also learn analytical skills, which I think are the most important. If the cash is low, then your accounts receivable is up. If your so you learn ratios between transactions, and you start that out very early. We have interns that start working in tax and auditing before they've even graduated.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to be respectful of everyone's time, and we're going to wrap up. So thank you so much, Georgie, and to everyone who's on the call today, and to the people who are asking questions. Thank you so much. But before we log off, just a couple of announcements. So So following this presentation, you will be asked to complete a post-program mindset survey. And if you enter the survey in, you'll be entered into a chance to win a gift card. So please, anybody who's on that call, please take that survey and you'll be entered into the drawing. And then lastly, please join us next week as we welcome Attorney General Hector Balderas and Cedric Robinson of Fidelity. They will be discussing investing in your future by learning more about financial literacy, white-collar crime, and saving and investing. So keep an eye out on your email for those registration links or the meeting links if you've already registered. Thank you so much, Georgie, and to everyone on the call, and I really hope we see you all next week.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.